A fat, green-haired faggot tranny libtard giving a review of Citizen Vigilante? This is totally gonna go over well with everyone. But let's be real, guys. I'm giving a negative review to an Uwe Boll film. This should not be a controversy. Oh my god, how do I even describe this movie? I guess Citizen Vigilante is directed by, you guessed it, Uwe Boll. And it stars Armie, who is going after wrongdoers in Europe who haven't gotten the punishment that he believes they deserve to receive. I guess that's probably the least problematic way I could describe the most problematic movie I've ever seen. I know this is the big culture war movie within the current cultural zeitgeist, and no matter what you say about it, whether that's positive or negative, it will automatically become a extremely political statement, apparently. I deeply reject that mentality, especially when discussing art. I don't consider myself a very political person, despite my queer identity. Naturally, I do have certain strong political beliefs, considering the way I exist in this world. Kinda hard not to for someone like me, but I'm not gonna talk about that. I'm gonna talk about this movie, which, considering that this is an extremely preachy, one-sided, highly political film, gonna be kind of hard to do, but look, here's my stance on it. Contrary to what I hear a lot of people spouting online, I think art should be political. I think that political, moral values are an essential part of the human experience, and I think that art should always be a personal expression from someone. I do not think we should take politics out of movies. I think that that's absolutely ludicrous. I will say that when tackling heavier subject matter like this film in particular having a heavy anti-immigration stance. Regardless of what you believe, I feel like in order to make a compelling story, you might want to explore the nuance of things, and you might want to explore both sides of this situation. If anything, just to get in the headspace of the people you're opposed to here. I've watched some interviews with Uwe Boll and Armie, and Uwe Boll specifically said that he isn't entirely against immigration, but is talking about a specific niche that I don't particularly agree with myself and think is a little bit misguided. But regardless of how he may feel about the subject, that is not what comes through in this movie whatsoever. A lot of these criminals in this film doing these horrifically violent crimes, more often than not, are portrayed as minorities and people of color. The opening scene of this film depicts an innocent woman and her child walking down the street, only for a black man to come up with a knife and brutally stab the mother in front of her child. And it's played completely straight. This movie takes itself entirely serious despite its extremely graphic gore. Gore that, if placed in a different movie that maybe wasn't taking itself seriously, I may have been able to been like, oh, that looked kind of cool. But the context here is always entirely self-serious, and it's within the context of these really gruesome scenarios that aren't funny, though I guess I did find myself laughing at a lot of the absurdity here. Armie Hammer is fucking awful in this movie, straight up. He's got this very Chris Hansen from Dateline to Catch a Predator look going for him that I think will give Robert Pattinson a run for his money. But just like everything else within this movie's presentation, he also takes it way too seriously, to the point where he acts as if he's constantly holding in a poop. When you watch the movie with that context, it's honestly hard not to laugh at almost any line that he delivers.
Do you want justice?
Yes. As far as the presentation in this movie goes, yeah, it's an Uwe Boll film. It's fucking awful. Really horrible, oversaturated cinematography, overexposed at times. Some of the worst, most choppy editing I've ever seen in a movie. And while there is a loose narrative being told here, this movie is sort of trying to do this Christopher Nolan non-linear storytelling thing, where it's jumping around the chronology. Meanwhile, most of the movie is just Armie Hammer walking into these situations and preaching to people what he believes in, while also brutally murdering people of color and other minority groups. I'm a fan of a lot of movies that are told in a non-traditional story pattern that kind of jumps around, but you kind of need to have a sense of craft and skill to pull something like that off. Something that big surprise, Uwe Boll does not have one iota. Anyone who disagrees with what I'm saying or is angered by what I'm saying about this movie has probably already commented and will never listen to what I'm actually saying, aside from just the fact that I'm shitting on this movie. But here's the thing, are we supposed to take everything this protagonist is doing as right? Because he acts extremely inconsistent throughout the movie, and there's a part of me that thinks maybe they're going for a Taxi Driver-esque character study and we're sort of supposed to see that he's a morally ambiguous character. They establish that he owns this apartment building, which I would assume is the building he walks into that he claims he owns, before deciding to fuck a sex worker in one of the most uncomfortable, out-of-place scenes I've ever seen in a film, only to interrupt the hot, steamy pounding sesh by pointing out the fact that he notices mold growing in the walls. I get it, bro. I'm autistic too. I would probably do the same thing. And I'm not even saying that him having sex with a prostitute is necessarily a morally wrong thing, in my opinion. Look, I'm all for sex work, fully support it, but this isn't the personally self-sanctioned sex work. Like, he makes references to this girl having a pimp. That whole pimp sex worker dynamic has always been considered extremely awful for a plethora of reasons. Goes without saying, a lot of abusive goings on occur within that dynamic, and the fact that he and his character never addresses that and downright supports it totally contradicts a lot of what he's trying to preach in this film. Let's also talk about the fact that he's going after people who have harmed innocent civilians, yet he blatantly kills an innocent civilian, trying to prove a point to this judge character about how people are sheep and will obey the law even if it means their own lives will end. So he purposely drives down the wrong lane and is heading towards another oncoming vehicle, which then flips over into a ditch and for absolutely no reason explodes in this effect that I didn't edit but is in the actual movie. And also for a character who's supposed to be hyper intelligent and ultra prepared for all these different situations to a Batman type level, him staging this judge's suicide makes absolutely no sense. He leaves the judge in the passenger seat and just pours vodka on top of him before slitting his wrist. Like, okay, that's like the absolute worst way anyone could have ever staged something like that. Are these things that you don't notice or just choose to ignore while watching the movie because it happens to align with your politics? Are you choosing to ignore that when he's watching these Instagram vertical videos of people praising him on his phone, he has his phone in landscape mode and we still see the bars on the sides while he's looking at that video? Why the fuck wouldn't he be watching it like a regular person on their cell phone in vertical view? I have no idea what they were even thinking when they filmed that scene. It's absolutely absurd. See, if you align with this film's politics, I'm not even gonna say that you're wrong for that. That's your right. But demand better fucking movies than this. This is absolute shit. Just because a movie is criticizing the quote-unquote woke left blatantly in dialogue without any attempt of exploring any nuance whatsoever doesn't mean you have to like it. It doesn't change your politics if you don't like a movie that supports your politics. My friend and I just watched a movie on Tubi called Special Needs Revolt, which was weirdly one of the most political movies I've seen recently, aside from maybe Citizen Vigilante, and was very anti-Trump, very pro-liberalism in a lot of different ways. I still gave it a half star because it was fucking garbage. It was a Tubi movie. I don't let my political affiliation dictate literally every aspect of my life and let it think for me. I am a strong advocate that I think we need to question everything we believe in, otherwise how do we know what we believe? In other words, I think you should think for yourself. You giving in and pretending that this is a modern masterpiece are being just as complacent as Armie Hammer's character is criticizing people for being. What an awful fucking movie. Genuinely one of the worst movies I've seen in years. I understand Uwe Boll is a troll to an extent and is kind of trying to rage bait people constantly. This movie didn't make me angry necessarily. I'm more angry at the culture war surrounding it. I think that that's all completely stupid and pointless. No, this movie's not angering. This movie's just fucking embarrassing. I'm disappointed in you, Hoffman. You've fallen so far from grace. Citizen Vigilante gets a fucking 1 out of 10. Absolutely. Don't watch this movie. I don't recommend it, even if you do align with what it's trying to preach. If you are morbidly curious like I was, just do what I did. Pirate it. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you have a good one.